dismal bogs, murky lakes, carnivorous plants. Our swamp collection has everything you need to give your players a dreadful slog through the muck. Hi, I'm Nate, and I'm going to show you how to get started with swamps. Swamps are all about creating expansive areas where most of the terrain is dangerous and every step can be a platforming challenge. Our swamp banks are an incredibly flexible system that lets you freely build all sorts of treacherous areas to cross. Because swamps heavily utilize negative space building, you can get a ton of mileage out of just a few bank sets and some scatter. And everything blends seamlessly with our forest sets and make a great base for our ruins, our cities, our dungeons, and more. Let's take a look at what you can do with swamps. The backbone of our swamp collection are these swamp banks. They make up just about any swamp build you're going to do. You're often going to use them in conjunction with some floor pieces or forest floor pieces, as well as supplement them with some scatter bits, particularly our swamp-focused scatter bits. But these are the key building blocks here. Oh, all of these swamp banks are cast in dwarvenite, and they're dark gray dwarvenite. They'll have anchor magnet in the bottom, so they'll stick to our metal terrain trays and battle boards. They are 6 inches long on the backside for the large pieces, 3 inches long on the backside for the short ones. The side profile is about 1.5 inches long, and it's the exact same profile as our forest banks, our original forest banks, so you can use these interchangeably with the forest banks for more variety. These are most often used for negative space builds with some sort of water texture mat or something underneath them, but you can also use them to transition up one floor's height through sculpted builds if you'd like. We'll demonstrate all of that in a moment, but first let's walk through these pieces. So this is the straight landing bank, 6 inches long. All these pieces also have the organic 1-inch grid sculpted in there for your tactical movement. It's usually delineated by a rock or sticks or plants or depression or the like. Once you know what to look for, it's pretty easy to spot the 1-inch squares. You can track your tactical movement easily. We have the short bank. It's 3 inches long, so plenty of flat space to pop minis on there. This is the convex curve. So this is if you want to connect to banks going around the corner. You can put 4 of these together to make a little island. This is the concave curve. This is if you want to do an outside curve, one like such. And you can put 4 of these together to make a little pool if you just wanted a tiny bit of negative space. It's 3 inches across both of these backsides. Bump. Over here, we have the large convex. So this has 3 inches inside both of these faces and takes both of these are banks profiles on the side here. Plenty of flat playable space for minis. You'll often pair this with the 3x3 swamp floor to make it solid. You could put 4 of these in a circle and then put a 6x6 floor in the center if you wanted as well. This is the diagonal bank. So we come in here, we exit there, and it's basically a diagonal run going from end to end. This one has a teardrop insert hole in it, so you can change out this insert. It could be just a hole into the ground or a tunnel into the dungeon. You can pop this teardrop insert in, or you can put it on top like that, or you can swap out with any of our other teardrop inserts if you want some variety. Piece. This is the large concave curve. So it's doing the same thing the short one is, but it's got a 6-inch run on each of the back sides. And this one has baked in stumps. So they're part of our modular tree system. So it's got one large and one small. You can pop out, you can throw in any of our modular tree toppers if you want to change the look of your bank. Like that. Over here we have a pair of swell pieces. Banks come in here, they exit out here, and they're offset by 3 inches. So it's the size of one floor if you're going to add a bank like that. You can also use them inline together to add variety to any straight run. This is a modular stump topper, large stump. All there for any of our modular trees. We have the end cap. So this one has a profile of 2 banks. So you can use 2 banks side by side. Use this as like an end cap for a parallel run like this. It's great for making little islands or peninsulas or whatnot. It's very flat, great for building on. We have a pair of these transition banks. So these transition us from a regular bank profile like this down to a ledge profile. So if you want to use these in conjunction with a forest or mountain ledges, you can use these pieces. You can use them together to make an alternate straight run if you want, bank to bank, or you can use them around a floor to make another a corner, a little convex corner if you need to. And then our final piece is the 3x3 swamp floor, 3x3 on each side. This one has 4 anchor magnets, 1 in each corner. And this is interchangeable with any of our other forest floor pieces, so you have a large variety that you can choose from. All right, now let's see how all of these banks work on a negative space build. All right, so let's demonstrate how these banks work. We're using a 2-foot by 2-foot swamp water texture mat because it looks really good. It was designed to work with our swamp banks, but you can put anything you want underneath your swamp banks. Generally use a watery texture, but it could be anything you imagine. So for building, you generally are just going to put the banks either back to back or end to end, a bump, and you can you build it like that. And the fun thing with building with the banks is it's pretty organic and pretty free. You just kind of want to start playing and building and see what kind of a silhouette of dry land you're going to make and see where it goes. So let's just start putting some pieces out here. We want to make a little bit of land somewhere that the players have this sort of somewhat safe zone, and then give them some enticing reasons to go out into more dangerous areas. So we're using the swell here to transition this back from 3-inch. Look for the straight bank back here, convex to get around the corner, and then we use the end cap on there to make a little peninsula. So now we have ourselves a nice little island here. If we want to give the players some destination, let's use some scatter bits. We use the crescent rock formation. They want to come out here. Maybe we'll put a MacGuffin out there. We'll put the magnetic boulder with the seal of binding on there. So maybe that's where we want them to go. They had some reason to go out into those dangerous waters. Let's give them a way to get over there. Let's take the floating log. I'm going to open this up, make it a little further even. Now they can use that. That's a transition, right? So you can have a kind of a slimy, slippery, maybe dexterity check kind of situation to get out over there. Generally, it's nice to give a couple of paths so you don't sort of railroad them through. There's a couple of ways to solve it. So let's put some lily pads over here. So maybe they could do some platforming and lily pads to get over there, however they want to crack it. Let's make the whole thing feel a little swampier. So let's pull the diagonal out and put the large concave in there. This has got these stumps in here, but what we're going to do is we're going to pop the stump toppers off and use, these are some of our real swamp-centric accessories. So these are projecting roots. These are the large ones. They pop right in there, project up, and now we have something that feels like old mangroves or dagobah and very swampy. It's a little more claustrophobic, blocks your movement a little more, and just feels kind of creepy. So we can do the same thing with we've got the one for the small stumps, other projecting roots. We'll pop that out there. Let's throw a dead tree on that one, right, to make this feel more like a dead swamp. Maybe we'll make this one a dead tree too. Now it feels a little more menacing, a little more creepy. We also, if you want to kind of add to the creepy swamp vibe, you can take the hanging moss and hang that off a branch or a log and hang it here. You could even have it have some sort of game effect, but generally it just sort of makes everything feel a little impressive more hanging, more death-like. And you can just sort of continue to pop some scatter around, give players come in different areas to platform around. If you want to ratchet up the danger a little bit, you could throw some dangerous plants in there. We got like a black rot tree. Maybe we'll throw this in to make this area less appealing, because you do not want to get too close to this black rot tree. Or maybe we'll take the slink root here. This thing could grab you, and if we want to make it really hard, we can just put it sort of over here, and it kind of blends in the rest of the trees. Or you can just like pop it right in the middle, and now it's threatening sort of everything you do to get over to the seal of binding. But basically, that's all it is to building with swamps, right? You're putting banks out, you're sliding around, you're moving your kind of scatter around so you can make some neat paths for your players, give them some interesting options, pepper in some danger, and off you go. With the big thing to remember that like you want to be having you want to kind of use your water space as much as possible, right? Because that can be difficult terrain, it could be lethal, it could have leeches, and there's a lot of interesting things you could do with that negative space, and it rewards people who have interesting abilities to jump or fly or whatnot. If you want a little more playable area, so often you're going to want to have some like bigger islands, maybe not just a whole bunch of small ones. You can use any of the forest floors, right? So if you wanted to open this up, let's pop this thing out. We'll throw forest floor in there. Let's get a little more space here. So we're just going to slide it around. Let's see what we got. Let's put transition banks over here. Boom, boom. How are we going to get around this corner? Concaves. And then I'll come around back here. Do I have any? Yeah, swells. Let's put one swell here, one swell there. Another concave. So now we have a lot more playable space in islands that we could put some more dangerous plants. Maybe we want to throw let's throw a MacGuffin in there. Maybe this statue is part of the ancient ruins. They need to find both pieces or something for more reason to explore. Give them things that they can find as they tromp around in the island here. But it's important to remember you can interchange your forest floors, and you can interchange your forest banks. If you need a little more variety, you can swap in any of your forest banks pieces to give yourself some more visual variety as you're building. And then we could take this. This is one of the original forest banks. Let's swap that concave in. Particularly if you have to use the same piece a couple times in a row, you could then get some variation by using two different concaves next to each other. Same with the convexes. But mostly you're just going to be pushing banks around on some negative space and discovering different ways that they go together that looks pretty good, and then peppering in some danger. Now let's look at some sample builds to see how we put this all together into some things that look like actual encounters. This sample build showcases how you can use the banks to create a contained body of water inside a build with sculpted floors. It has a footprint of 1.5 feet by 1 foot. We're building on top of one of the dismal quagmire 12 by 12 terrain trays with the water texture overlay on it to give us this water feature here. The idea here is we're using the banks to create a small body of water and then some sculpted floors to create more playable space here. This bundle is 5 sets. We have 1 forest floors, dense woods, 1 swamp floors pack, 1 swamp banks basic builder, 1 swamp banks advanced builder, and 1 dying forest tree toppers here. By popping in all these sort of dying forest tree toppers, it gives this whole thing a feel like it's definitely dead, boggy, swampy, dangerous sort of area. For this sort of encounter, we can start our party over yonder, and maybe they have to get something over here, or maybe they're just trying to walk through here and they get surprised by some sort of aquatic foe, such as the Ettengator here. And what would be fun here is if the water gave the monster some sort of advantage, or definitely give the players some sort of disadvantage. So maybe they don't want to be in the water unless they're on a lily pad, and the monster wants to maybe stay in the water. So give some opportunities for some interesting tactical movement. There's plenty of cover behind all these trees. If you do get into combat and you're having a hard time getting your minis or seeing what's going on, you can always pop out the modular trees. The stumps will show you where they are, but now you have a little easier access to move your minis around and maneuver. This shows how well the forest floors work with the rest of the swamp collection and how adding some sort of water feature in between your floors can make for a nice dynamic encounter. So hopefully this will inspire you in some of the ways that you can do contained bodies of water in a build. And just changing the trees out to something dead really also changes the whole look and feel of the scene. So it should be a pretty good, lively little encounter. All right, this sample build is showcasing the combination of swamp banks with mountain escarpments and some of the possibilities that await there. We are on a 2 foot by 2 foot footprint. We're built on top of the swamp water texture mat, the 2 foot by 2 foot swamp water texture. This is my ideal base for building any swamp build. And the collection of sets is listed in the lower third below. It's mountain escarpments, a few floors, and a bunch of the swamp banks and scatter bits. So we're sort of following the same premise as most of our other swamp builds. We're doing some negative space building, a lot of playable space in here. We're using the forest clearing floor in the middle here, and then multiple paths out to sort of radiate out and have places that players can explore. In this scenario, they'd start over in this corner and have to kind of explore around. We want to give them a couple of different paths to get across the board without going into the water. In this case here, they can pop over onto the log, and then we have over here we're using the rock spur and rope on suspended perches hanging it down, so there's a sort of a way to get up, and there's evidence that maybe someone was here before them exploring. So over here we're using the crag step up against the escarpments to give you a couple of platforming options to get on up. The big technique that's happening over here is we're using the mountain escarpments directly on the mat to make like a sheer cliff, and then topping them with the swamp banks. So we're just taking the mountain escarpment pieces that you can see in the Getting Started with Mountains video and then capping them with the swamp banks. The profiles of the banks are made such that they will match nicely with the mountain escarpments to do just this sort of thing. And then behind them, we're using the floors with 50 millimeter stilts, and those are using magnets to stick there on the anchor magnets on the bottom. That'll hold up your floors and put them at the exact height of one escarpment plus one bank like that. So you can then sort of seamlessly go from the swamp banks back into floors, and you could go that and go back down and keep building as such. We're doing the same gag over here. In this case, we're using the escarpment just flipped around to help support the floors underneath, because you can do that and then sort of have more exposed rock area. Over here, we're even sharing a stilt in the back and split it between the two. Stilts and escarpments are your friends if you want to go up and build banks like this. The other technique you can do that's very similar using the banks is just use them for just a gradual rise from one sculpted floor up one level. So in this case, if you're treating this as sculpted floor, we're using the banks to go up one level. And we could do the same thing. Again, we could take, if we were using this as our floor, we could have banks. We could start another level of floors up here and build banks on those floors, maybe even another level if you wanted to sort of gradually rise bit by bit. So this also makes a wonderful base if you want to introduce some non-wilderness biome pieces. This is a fantastic base, and the wilderness is always a good base for any non-biome bits. So in this case, let's throw a ruins out here, make some ruins in this remote location, see what it transforms this into. All right, so we dropped some ruins pieces in here. We're using some dungeon ruins here, some castle ruins here to give some points of interest. Now there's an excuse to maybe have some undead here, some uncovered, some hidden treasures that have yet to be discovered. One fun thing we're doing here with the Dungeon Ruins is we're taking these are the moss hangers, which you might have if you have the dying forest tree topper. So like you can pop the moss hangers over the walls to make it feel like there's some gunk. They've been here for a while. We're also scattering some of the Dungeon Ruins pieces out into the wilderness a little bit to make it feel more integrated. Let's put this. You can put a couple of the lumps over here to make it feel a little more overgrown. Something like that. Now the players have some areas to explore and discover some hidden bits. And then up here, we're using some of the castle pieces and some of the ruins. We're kind of cheating using the 6-inch tower ruins here, but you get the idea of this old abandoned tower and castle structure. So pretty much anything that you put in the wilderness is just going to suddenly look more remote, a little more wild, and it really can create a fantastic scene. So hopefully this will inspire you in both how you can combine some of the mountains, escarpment pieces, forest floors, as well as some man-made objects, some non-wilderness biome bits. This is the Bleakmyre Swamp Reforged bundle. This has a 4-foot by 2-foot footprint. It's a very large build. It's using 2 of our 2-foot by 2-foot swamp water texture mats as the base. And it has just a fantastic collection of our swamp banks, sort of all the swamp banks, a bunch of the 3x3 swamp floors. So you have some extra playable ground inside. A nice mix of our tree toppers, our dead ones, and our swamp tree toppers, as well as some other scatter bits. The complete listing of sets is in this lower third below. But basically, this is a toolbox of all the bits you need to make a huge variety of swamp builds. So in this case, we've let's put our party here. They're going to come in and over here. We have a couple of islands and lots of little platforming bits for our party to explore. Perhaps they need to make it over here to some sort of MacGuffin over here. Maybe they're searching for the last method root. Let's put a couple of method reeds right here. They've got to harvest these special plants. There's only 2 of them right here in the center of this thing, so it gives them some incentive to get on over here. And we could perhaps have along the way some maybe some foes pop out and harass them along the way. We've created this build is sort of all about different pathways, right? So you could stay on dry land a bunch of the way across, platforming out along this way. You could sort of venture out onto lily pads and make some long jumps, sort of work your way across this way. We've got a little bit of elevation here, which is kind of fun, and more just sort of floaty bits. So there's a lot of little paths through the floaty bits where you can kind of pick your paths through, try and make it across without running into too much danger. Although we do have some surprises lurking. Most likely there's something in here, so we're taking this is the burrow rock cluster, hidden burrow rock cluster, and it's over this diagonal bank with the teardrop insert removed, so there's a pit down there, so there's definitely some sort of critter waiting to leap out there, as well as maybe some of the lily pads can be unstable if you step on them, so you hop on there to put this guy and it drops into the water or whatnot. But this could very quickly and easily be rearranged into a different variety of islands. You could also you could overlap the water mats on each other to make it like a 2x3, and then rim the outside with banks and have it just be the central areas, all central water, sort of more of a bog build. However you crack it, this is a fantastic toolbox for building sort of any manner of swamp encounters. It would pair very well with either forest floors or escarpments to give you some more coverage and more dry land to build out from there. So hopefully this will inspire you in the sorts of things that you could build with this bundle. And that's everything you need to know to start your swamp collection. If you want to see more, check out our swamp playlist for a ton of walkthroughs and demos. And you can join our forums or Discord, where we have a very active community that loves to help new gamers. Thanks so much for watching, and now it's back to the anvil.